As Matt was alluding to, we've got some news today. That company announcing it started shipping the first doses of its COVID-19 vaccine to Europe, making the drug company's entry into that market. The president and CEO of Novavax, Stan Erck, joining us now to talk a little bit more about these developments. Stan, thanks very much for being with us. And let's start on the news in Europe and how you got to this point where these shipments could be sent to Europe.
Sure, thank you. So it's a big milestone for the company. We actually started shipping our first product last month into low and middle income countries by shipping 10 million doses to Indonesia. And actually, we've started vaccinating there, so that's a first for the company. And we followed that up with shipments to the UK starting today, and we're going to continue that throughout the first quarter. We're planning on shipping 27 million doses there, and just a few days ago, we got an increase in that order from 27 million, adding 42 million doses in the second quarter. So there's a lot of pent-up demand for our vaccine. And on top of that, we're waiting for, I think, approvals within the next 30, 60, 90 days from places like Australia, Canada, UK, and hopefully the US in that time period. So it's a big transition for the company.
What kind of efficacy are we looking at in this vaccine, Stan? And also tell us about the COVAX commitment that you've made, because it's a $1 billion commitment.
Sure. No, it's not $1 billion commitment. It's a 1 billion dose commitment.
Sorry, a 1 billion dose commitment is what I meant.
Very different.
Yeah.
And so that's very big for us because in part because we had funding from world organizations that funded part of the work in the early days, we decided that we would follow the policy of equitable global access. And so we wanted to get doses out into the low and middle income countries as soon as possible. And we've done that. We've done that first. And so that's going to be a big part of our business going forward. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Well, the efficacy of the vaccine. I mean, how well does it work?
Yeah. We have at least the best on par or the best efficacy vaccine. We got 96 to 100% efficacy in our phase 3 clinical trials when you measure it against the original strain of Wuhan. But when you measure it against variants, which is what we were able to do in our phase 3 trials, you got anywhere from 86 to 96% efficacy. So we have a really good vaccine, coupled with the fact that it's very tolerable. We have a very benign safety profile, and so we think we've got a good match. And on top of all that, we can ship the vaccine just using refrigerated temperatures. It has a 9-month shelf life. So it's got a lot of favorable characteristics. It's going to help us get the product shipped and used globally.
Stan, what is the story with, a lot of people complain about the boosters. They don't want to go and get shots all the time. But we do go and get flu shots every year, right? And I'm hoping that at some point I'll be able to get a combination yearly booster. Is this a possibility with your vaccine?
It's a great question because it fits exactly with what we're doing. In fact, we started a combination trial back last September, knowing that these two could be used together, possibly in an annual seasonal vaccine. We know now that it's become more and more clear that you're going to need to boost COVID. We don't know quite whether the boost is going to be at 6 months or every year like flu is, but we put them together. We did an animal study that showed that they both worked well. We started a human trial in September. We're going to get data in a couple months on our combination flu COVID vaccine, and the goal is to get that into the marketplace in a couple of years. And that would be a great breakthrough so that everybody could get just one shot with a combination vaccine a year.
So, Stan, given that you have this European milestone, and I'm sure people in North America are watching that very closely on the regulatory front, you alluded to that earlier, all these other markets where you've applied for approvals. Can you give us an update on the FDA process, at least what you know at this point, and even here in Canada in terms of what your expectations are for the approval process from here?
Yeah, sure. And Canada has been an important partner of ours as well early on. And so we have, in both Canada and the U.S., we filed our complete package of data. to the regulatory agencies. Canada has been working very closely with some of the other regulatory agencies in Europe and is evaluating our application right now. In the U.S., the same thing. We've filed all of our CMC data. There was an official guidance by the U.S. FDA that you have to wait 30 days from filing those data before you actually do the official act of asking for an emergency use authorization. That will come at the end of January, and then it will be up to the regulators to determine how long they need to take to review the process.
In terms of other things that you're working on, Stan, what else is there, or are you completely focused on COVID-19 right now?
No, in fact, we have a panoply of respiratory vaccines, and we've got RSV, we've got flu, we've got COVID. They could all eventually be in one single syringe and take an annual vaccine for all of these. We've done trials in all populations, in elder folks and in pregnant women for RSV. We've got a very effective platform for respiratory vaccines. And then on top of that, we've got a malaria vaccine that's in phase 3 clinical trials with our partner in Serum Institute. So we've got a very potent platform of vaccines.
Very quickly, Stan, before we go, I know you fielded a lot of questions on this COVID-19 vaccine and its effectiveness versus Omicron, but at what point, just given what's happened with the Omicron variant being more focused on that kind of treatment, you've been working on that. What can you tell us on that front?
Sure. So what we found out were two things. One is that we found that our current vaccine, we call it 2373, has broad protection against a number of variants and makes broad antibody responses, including to what's circulating now, the Delta and the Omicron. So what we have to evaluate, and the second part of that is the moment we heard about Omicron, we started working on that vaccine. We actually, in December, we actually made a vaccine. We put it into GMP production, which is where you start scaling up production. We're doing that right now. Our expectation is that we'll start a human trial this quarter. And then what we have to do is we have to look at the data. It may be that our current vaccine, 2373, is sufficiently potent against Omicron that we don't. It's better not to change the vaccine, or it may be that we need an Omicron-specific booster. And data will tell us that, and we'll let everybody know after we've talked with World Health Organizations about the best way to go.